He never expected the note she handed him to change everything. Sergeant Leah Matthews had been through hell and back, months overseas in grueling conditions, battling both physical exhaustion and the relentless toll on her spirit had left her drained. Now, all she craved was peace. Her uniform, a worn testament to countless battles, clung to her tired frame as she navigated the busy airport. The weight of her duffel bag dug into her shoulder, but it was nothing compared to the burden she carried inside. Memories of long nights, lost friends, and the harsh realities of war etched deep lines into her face. Yet, Leah stood tall, embodying the quiet strength that had always defined her. She was stunned when the airline upgraded her to first class. Maybe it was their way of thanking her for her service? Grateful but uneasy, she slid into the plush seat, feeling out of place among passengers wrapped in designer clothes and business deals. She adjusted her posture, trying to relax. That's when she saw him, a man striding toward her with a look of disbelief and irritation. "Excuse me," he snapped, eyes narrowing. "You're in the wrong seat. This is mine." Leah blinked, momentarily confused. "This is 3A, she replied calmly, showing him her ticket. He sneered, glancing at the ticket before locking eyes with her again. "There's gotta be a mistake. You're military. You belong in coach, not first class." The sting of his words hit harder than she expected. She had faced prejudice before, but the sting never dulled. Leah drew a deep breath, steadying herself. "Sir, this is my assigned seat." "Unbelievable," he muttered, shaking his head, eyes scanning the cabin as if seeking support. "You don't belong here." Leah's cheeks burned under the weight of 100 stares. Some passengers watched curiously, others judged silently. She was ready to offer to swap seats just to end the spectacle, when a flight attendant intervened. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice firm but polite. The man launched into his complaint, but the flight attendant turned to Leah with a respectful smile. "Sergeant Matthews, your seat is indeed here in first class. Thank you for your service." She turned back to the man, her tone now sharper. "Sir, your seat is 5A, just 2 rows back." Red-faced, the man huffed, offering no apology. He stalked back to his seat, radiating frustration. Leah sank into her chair, a mix of relief and lingering anger swirling inside her. She tried to shake it off, but his words clung to her, whispering doubts she'd fought for years to silence. As the plane climbed, Leah's thoughts drifted to her time in uniform. The sacrifices, the bonds forged in fire, the friends left behind. She had given so much for this country, yet here she was, still being judged by a stranger who saw her as less than. It wasn't just his words that hurt. It was what they represented. No matter her service, her sacrifice, some would always see her uniform before they saw her humanity. The man kept glancing her way, eyes filled with disdain. Leah felt the tension like a weight pressing down. But she refused to let his prejudice define her journey home. Pulling a small notepad from her bag, she began to write. Her hand moved swiftly, the words flowing from a place of raw honesty. "Dear Sir," she began, "I know our earlier encounter wasn't pleasant, and I want to address it directly. I'm proud to serve this country, to protect the freedoms we all enjoy. I've seen the cost of those freedoms up close. I carry the memories of those who didn't make it home. My hope is that someday we'll look beyond our differences and see each other for what we truly are, human beings, more alike than we realize. Kindness costs nothing, and it's something we all deserve to give and receive." She folded the note, motioned for the flight attendant, and asked her to deliver it. As the attendant slipped it into his hand, Leah leaned back, staring out the window. The world below blurred into distant patches of green and brown. Somewhere out there, the battles continued. Some fought on foreign soil, others in silent moments like these. maybe, just maybe, this small act of courage would shift something in the heart of a man who believed she didn't belong. Leah folded the note carefully, the weight of her words settling in her heart. She signaled for the flight attendant, who approached with a knowing smile, having witnessed the tense exchange earlier. Without a word, Leah handed her the note, and the attendant nodded, understanding the significance of the message she was about to deliver. The flight attendant walked down the aisle toward the man in 5A. Leah watched as she handed him the folded paper, her steps measured and deliberate. The man took it, his expression shifting from curiosity to mild confusion. He unfolded the note slowly, eyes scanning the neatly written lines. Leah couldn't see his face clearly, but she noticed his posture change. His shoulders, once stiff with indignation, slumped slightly. His brows furrowed as he read, his eyes flicking back to the top of the page as if he needed to absorb the words again. Whatever he saw in those lines seemed to hit harder than he expected. For the remainder of the flight, he didn't glance Leah's way. Instead, he held the note in his hands, staring at it with an intensity that suggested more than just surface-level contemplation. He read it repeatedly, his lips moving as if silently rehearsing the words. Leah hoped the message would resonate, though she had no expectation of a response. Taking the high road had always been her way, even when it hurt. As the plane began its descent, Leah shifted in her seat, readying herself for the final stretch home. The thought of reuniting with her family filled her with warmth, a beacon after so many months of hardship. She grabbed her bag, the familiar weight of her duffel reassuring her. But as she stood up to exit, she saw the man approaching her, the note still clutched in his hand. He looked different now, humbled, perhaps even remorseful. Gone was the arrogance. In its place, uncertainty and a hint of vulnerability. For a moment, he seemed at a loss for words, his eyes searching hers. "Sergeant Matthews?" he began, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. I wanted to thank you for your note." His gaze dropped to the floor, the tension in his shoulders visibly easing. "It really made me think." Leah nodded, waiting, giving him the space to find his words. "I realized," he continued, his voice low and earnest, "that I was out of line earlier. I made assumptions about you, about who you are, without knowing anything. I let my own biases get the better of me. I'm truly sorry." The sincerity in his eyes surprised Leah, softening the lingering resentment she'd felt. Apologies weren't always easy to come by, and she recognized the courage it took to admit fault. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice steady. "It takes strength to own up to our mistakes." For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Then, the man extended his hand. "My name's David," he said, his grip firm but hesitant. "And I want you to know I'm grateful for your service." His voice caught slightly, and Leah noticed the flicker of pain behind his eyes. "I lost my brother in Afghanistan," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "He was a soldier too. Seeing you, it brought up a lot of emotions I wasn't ready for." Leah's heart tightened. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, her words gentle and sincere. "Losing someone in the line of duty, it leaves a mark that never truly fades." David nodded, his eyes misting over. "Thank you," he whispered, the words thick with emotion. "And thank you for reminding me that we're all in this together." They walked side by side off the plane, two strangers who had found common ground in the most unexpected of places. Leah could feel the weight of the encounter lifting, replaced by something deeper, an understanding, a connection. At the gate, David turned to her one last time, reaching into his pocket. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out," he said, handing her a business card. "And please, Take care of yourself. Leah took the card, tucking it safely into her pocket. I will. You take care too, David. As she watched him walk away, a sense of peace settled over her. The journey had started with confrontation, but it ended with a bridge built between them. Leah knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Prejudice and misunderstanding still existed, but moments like this gave her hope. They reminded her that change didn't always come in sweeping gestures. Sometimes it started with a simple note, a few heartfelt words that could shift a perspective, open a heart, or mend a wound. As she walked through the airport, the noise and chaos around her faded. All she could think about was the power of connection, the potential for growth, even in conflict. There would always be people willing to learn, to change, to see the world and each other with new eyes. And that, she realized, was something worth fighting for.